Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Aquarium of the Pacific's online academy. My name is Dana. Again, I'm a member of the education department here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Now, today we are going to be having an aquarium exploration focused on fish. Throughout this program, I highly encourage and invite you to text us right down here at this phone number, which is 562-286-1838. We really love to cater our programs towards what you are interested in learning about. So if we're talking about a fish and it's kind of sparking some curiosity and you have questions, you want to discover more about it, please shoot us a text, ask us questions. I'm joined in the studio today by James, who's controlling what's going on up here. Ooh, Trop is kind of dark right now. Who's controlling what's going on up here behind me. I'm also joined by Jen and Emily, who are going to be taking questions and fielding them in towards me so that I can answer as many questions as possible on air. Now, do keep in mind that standard texting rates will apply, and make sure that you have adult permission before texting us today. And if you are watching after our live stream, we are streaming from 11 to 11:30 today. If you're texting if you're watching after our live program, please feel free to email us at live@lbaop.org. Once again, if you're watching live, shoot us a text, 562-286-1838. And if you're watching after we are done streaming live, please email us at live@lbaop.org. We want to answer as many questions as we can. Again, we love when you are participating in our programming. So with that being said, we're going to kind of jump on in, if you will, and we're going to explore the aquarium, highlighting some of the fish that we have here. So I'm going to actually let James kind of control this program and your questions. I have no control right now, all right? So James gets to pick what fish we talk about, but if you text in questions, I'll also jump to those animals. Fish related. Remember, this is a fish program. I know a lot of times we get questions about otters or jellies. We're focusing on our fish today. So James, if you want to pull up the first one, what have we got? Whoa! Now that's a fish. But this is a unique fish, okay? So what we're going to focus on throughout this program is exploring different adaptations of fish. Now, adaptations are something that an animal is born with that, or it has on or in its body that helps it survive in its habitat. So let's take a look at this puffer here for a moment. What do we know about this fish? Well, even if we knew nothing at all except for the fact that it was indeed a fish, we could kind of make some assumptions. For example, it's a fish, which means it's living underwater. So it's going to have to get its oxygen from the water column. So it doesn't have lungs like you and I. Instead, it's going to have gills. So gills are kind of feathery filaments inside. They usually have a gill plate right around this area. A little bit more. Right around this area here. And the gills are designed to pull oxygen from the water. Okay, well, what else do we know about it? Just looking at it, we see that it does, in fact, have an eye. So it's looking around and sensing its environment through vision. What else does it have? I'm standing right in front of it, but this right here is a fin. Fish are living underwater, and so fish are going to need ways to move through water in a very efficient way. For example, I grew up a swimmer. I like to think I can move through water very, very well, but compared to a fish, my arms and my legs and my body are much more designed or adapted to live on land, right? I'm able to walk around. I'm able to stand up tall. During this stay-at-home order, I've taken on yoga. That's something very new to me, but my skeleton and my spine helps me move and control that body. Underwater, it's a lot more beneficial to have fins. They help those animals move through the water very efficiently, saving as much energy as possible. They can have really strong fins if they're fast swimmers. They can have these little side fins right here, these pectoral fins. You'll see they're very thin. These are called rays or spines. They can have rays or spines in their fins. And these are a lot more stabilization kind of fins, right? So if I were walking on a tightrope, I would use my arms to balance, right? Fish often use those pectoral fins to balance as well. All right. What's that? Oh, we got a video. Perfect. He was kind of doing some charades back there going like this. All right, let's pull that video up. What have we got? 2 birds. All right. Let's see here. Check it out. Look how cute they are. Everybody, can you be a little puffer? Oh, this is great. Okay, so can we pause it actually? So what do you notice about this puffer right here? Well, in the video on the other side, we are seeing that fin go real crazy over here, right? But on this side, there is no fin. And so this animal actually lost a fin, right? But it's still being super successful in its habitat. It uses that other fin right there to help move around. And you'll see that it's still using that fin really, really heavily for balance and stabilization. So let's watch that video again. See how fast it's going. Go, go, go. And then it also has these fins, the dorsal and the anal fin right here. Those are two more that help with stabilization. And it's actually swimming predominantly with its tail. Okay, this is swimming all over the place, right? Predominantly with its tail right back here. And that's that strong muscle and stronger fin that I was talking about. So fish can use different fins to swim. All right. What else? That's a really awesome video. So let's go back to the photo of our puffer and talk about a couple more adaptations here. I'm going to step off screen, give you the opportunity to just take a look. What do you notice about this fish? All right. So we notice that there's different colors on this fish right here. And so there's bars and bands. Fish have spots. This fish even has polka dots all around it, right? And so why might fish be different colors? Well, sometimes it's camouflage. As we roll through this program, we're actually going to be exploring other animals and other fish, that might be able to camouflage really well. But that's not the main line of defense for this puffer. A lot of adaptations, right? Remember, that's a big word we're really going to focus on through this program. Something an animal has in or on its body that helps it survive in its habitat. So when we talk about our adaptations, we're talking about things that help it find food. We mentioned how it uses those eyes. It can look. It's got a mouth right here. Puffers have very obvious mouths. We talk about, let's see, adaptations. They find food. They find shelter, or they find some way to defend themselves. So camouflage is a great way to defend themselves. And this puffer, right, in particular, their defense mechanism is to puff up, poof, and they have spines. This is like a porcupine fish, okay? So it's going to have spines all over it. So that's a huge line of defense right there. So finding food, defending itself, and finding a mate. Colors can be a really great way not just to hide, but also to flash how pretty you are and flash how strong your genes are. I'm very healthy, right? That's how fish are going to find mates. Now, James is actually taking in some questions here, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to those. We'll jump back to the studio and let's see what we've got. Oh, you guys are wanting to know a lot of great things. First one is, what is the biggest bony fish? Oh, I love this because it's actually one of my favorite fish. We're going to put it up right here in just a moment. So the biggest bony fish is this weirdo right here. I love it. So this is called a mola mola. Now the mola mola is, like I said, the largest bony fish. Now I want to highlight what I mean when I say bony, okay? Inside this animal right here, they have a bony skeleton, just like inside this animal right here, okay? So bones make up this animal's skeleton, but there are fish that have a different kind of skeleton, and that's going to be our sharks and our rays. They actually have a cartilaginous skeleton. So do we have cartilage in our body anywhere? We do. We have cartilage in our nose, and we have cartilage in our ears. Now, if you notice, our ears are very flexible. Watch, I can bend mine down. Like that, right? Or I can bend them up. Maybe not on this side because my mic's right there. There you go. So our ears are very flexible, and if you notice sharks moving around, we actually have a great video of a gray reef shark swimming that we'll play a little bit later on. They're very flexible, okay? And it's that flexibility that allows it, or it's that cartilaginous skeleton, excuse me, that allows it to be so flexible. So largest bony fish, my favorite fish. In fact, I'm going to teach you how to make a mola. Okay, put your hand like this. Oh, it's backwards. Can I go this way? Put your hand like this, bottom. Take your other hand and flip it upside down. Boop, boop. You got a little mola. They swim with their two fins like this. This is their dorsal. This is their anal fin. Doo, 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 doo. Now, their little pectoral fins are actually this little nubbin right here. Okay, so we looked at the thin pectoral fins on that puffer, but it's just that little one right there on this big animal. This can be over 13 feet. Really big. All right, what about the blobfish? That was Kendall, wants to know about the blobfish. Great question, Kendall. So the blobfish is actually a deep sea animal. And deep sea animals kind of have some other adaptations. They live in a high pressure environment. There is a lot of weight of water on them. And so their body uses that pressure to kind of give it support. The reason blobfish look so funny when we pull them out is they lose a lot of that pressure, so they kind of lose some of that structure as well. Blobfish are great fish. I don't believe we have a photo, though. We also have a question of what do saltwater fish mostly eat? Ooh, I love that because we're thinking a little bit about one of the other adaptations, their mouths or their any other appendages that help them hunt. So what do they eat? If you were a fish living in the ocean, what might you eat? Are you going to be ordering pizza? Definitely not. Pizza sounds really good right now. Are you going to be going and picking up a hamburger? Definitely not, right? There's not a whole lot of cows walking around on the seafloor. So fish in the ocean are going to be eating seafood. Now, at first that sounds really funny, but I want you to think about that, right? So by seafood, I mean fish, I mean clams, I mean crabs, I mean any type of animal that lives in the ocean becomes food for other fish, right? So sea animals eat seafood. They eat any other animal in the ocean. Now, Angela wants to know, why do puffers puff up? That's a great question, Angela. Let's just jump back to our puffer photo, and then we'll explore this, and then we'll move on to a new animal. So why do puffers puff up? Remember that adaptation word? I talked about 3 main reasons that they have those adaptations, that those adaptations help them do. One of them is to find food, one of them is to find a mate, and one of them is defense. Now, there are other reasons a fish might have different adaptations, but those are 3 big ones. And it's that defense aspect that causes these puffers to puff up. When they puff, those spines kind of go up, and all of a sudden they went from this tiny little animal to a lot bigger. Now, for a predator, they're looking at that and they're being like, oh my gosh, bigger fish, spiny fish, how do I eat this, right? So it's just one way that that animal can defend themselves. All right. So, Lucas, you know what? We have a couple questions about this mola. Let's jump back to our mola here for a moment. Lucas wants to know, what are the mola's structural and behavioral adaptations? Great question. Like I said, one of my favorite fish, and actually its skeleton is one of them. So when you talked about structural adaptation, so we'll talk about the shape and how this kind of works, and then we'll talk about behavior. But when it comes to just basic structure of the mola, I highly encourage you all to Google an image of a mola skeleton. It will blow your mind. We don't have an image on our computer to pull up and show you, but with parent or adult permission, make sure you take a look at that skeleton because it's very cool, it's very unique, and it might surprise you. Now, as far as the structure goes, it's got its skeletal system in here. It's got these 2 fins that go up and down, and then this kind of weird curved part right here, this is actually the tail fin. It just doesn't look like a normal tail fin, right? And so the mola is also known as the ocean sunfish. And it'll go up to the surface of the water, and that flat body, right now we're kind of looking at it from the side. If it were to turn towards you, it would look like that, right? So kind of funny looking. It's got the 2 fins going up and down. It's got the face right in the front, and then its mouth would kind of be like right there. Boop, boop. It's got a very teeny tiny mouth right there. So the shape of the mola is a very compressed fish. That means it's thin this way. And that shape is one of the adaptations. It allows the fish to move through the water. It has these 2 fins that help it move, and the tail. But then it also, because it's flat, it goes up to the surface of the water. And this is both kind of a structural and behavioral adaptation. It goes up to the surface of the water, and it sits right on the surface. And that's one way it kind of regulates its temperature, right? It's basking in the sun. One reason it's called the ocean sunfish. But also, yeah, great photo. So there it is. What are you doing, mola? Right? So it's basking on the surface. This part right here, that's the tail. And this part over here, that's one of it's either dorsal or anal fin. It's dorsal, it looks like. And so it's kind of shaped like a dinner plate, right? Big flat spot. Now, that flatness allows a lot of parasites to grow on it. Okay, and so one of its behavioral adaptations is to come up on the surface like this, and it hovers and it basks in the sun, but it also does this to allow seabirds to come hang out on top of that fish and pick the parasites off, right? Kind of crazy. It's amazing how birds that are flying around in the sky and a fish from down below can come meet at that interface right there, the surface of the water, and have a relationship in some way, right? So the birds can, oh, these are great. I love it. I had no idea we had so many mola photos. So this is another image of a mola. You can see just how big it is compared to this person. Now, perspective is kind of hard to see where that fish is, right, in relation. But again, molas are really, really big. Now, molas are one of those animals that kind of confuses people, right? Why does it look like that? Why is it this funny shape? Why, that's not a fish that I'm used to. But remember when we talked about the puffer, we were kind of talking about those unique characteristics. But when we break it down, what makes a fish a fish? Well, it had fins, right? The mola had fins. It had gills, right? The mola has gills. It had a skeleton, right? It has bones. So one key characteristic of being a fish is to have a vertebrae, to have a backbone of some sort or a spinal cord. They have that. So these are all characteristics that even though it's a weird looking fish, it is still in fact a fish. Now, it looks like we have Mrs. Sullivan's third grade class here. So my friends, if you have questions, we'd love to hear from you, all right? So again, you can text us. That number is going to be 562-286-1838. So go ahead and text us right here. Right there. Text us. Okay, so we talked about our weird puffer. We talked about our weird mola. All right, James, what else have you got for me? Drum roll. Yeah, we talked about the sharks. Now, we are talking mostly about bony fish, but we were talking about that flexible cartilaginous skeleton. So let's take a look at this shark here as it swims around. So you can see it's got that strong tail I was talking about. And those pectoral fins and its dorsal fin, those are stabilization fins, just like our puffer was kind of using, right? Now, the puffer was really swimming with that one pectoral fin. It was really going around, going crazy. But really great footage of some swimming sharks. This is a gray reef shark right here. Now, again, we're not really going to be chatting a whole lot about sharks during this program. We're going to be focusing mostly on our bony fish. But I want you to kind of see how those fins, this is a really great example of that stabilization of the pectoral fins and the strong tail. But James, do all fish swim using the tail, or do some animals swim with their pectoral fins? Right? So we saw the puffer was kind of using the pectoral. This right here, again, another oddball. This is called a frogfish. All right. Now, take a look at it. Why do you think it's called a frogfish? Well, kind of looks like a frog, right? So, again, not all fish look like the stereotypical fish that we're used to. Let's talk about some adaptations that our frogfish has. Now, our frogfish, first, let's break down the fact that it is, in fact, a fish. Okay, so does it have fins? I see one right there, and I see one right there. Those are fins. I also see a tail kind of sticking back out over here. So it does have those fins. Does it have gills? Now, we can't see it, but yes, right here, this is called the operculum. Okay, that's the gill cover I talked about. So the gills are situated right under here. There we go. Right under here. And so it's able to get that oxygen from the water. Now, does it have a backbone? Yes, there is a skeletal system inside of this fish right here. So it's got the gills, it's got the backbone, it's got fins. It's pretty well adapted to live in the ocean. And so this, in fact, is a fish. Now, what other adaptations does this animal have? Let's take a look. How can it find food? How can it defend itself? How can it find a mate? Let's see if we have any other frogfish footage. I think we've got that real bright one with the little doodad. There we go. All right, little doodad. So this is another frogfish. Super goofy looking, right? What on earth are we even looking at here? But again, you can see that basic, oh, there's a fin up top. This is the dorsal fin, okay? This is going to be, again, where the operculum is. Now, what is this? A very blank, staring eyeball, right? And so frogfish, one of their adaptations is the fact that they don't have super distinguishable bodies, right? If you were swimming along a coral reef, which is where our frogfish often are found, you might not even notice one because it's just kind of a hunk of color, right? And so it blends in with the environment looking like a rock or looking like a hard structure or anything in the ocean, right? I remember one time I was snorkeling in Hawaii with my dad, and he was so good at spotting all of these animals. We'd get out of the snorkel, or we went diving together as well, and he'd go, "Did you see this? Did you see that? What about that?" And I'm like, "I'm the marine biologist. How did I miss that?" And he goes, "Well, I just look for things that don't belong." And I think in my mind, everything belonged. So it was really hard to spot those weird things. And this is one of those things that my dad probably would have seen. He would have noticed the different color or the different shape. But it's one of those things that blends in so well with their environment that you might not notice it at all. Probably like me, right? And so, really great adaptation of camouflage. Now, what about this? This is kind of weird, right? Now, that's a little appendage that can hang off their head, and there's a handful of fish that have things like that, and that's a way to attract prey towards it. Now, our frogfish aren't super fast movers. In fact, I talked about the swimming of fins, and they aren't really swimming a whole lot at all. And their pectoral fins that are the ones right down here, they actually kind of sit right here. They like sit on the ground a little bit more. All right, my friends, so another really great fish. So we are getting some more questions. Let's head back to the studio here. Let's see. We have some people who want to know. We have a homeschool joining us. We love that. We're glad we can be a resource for you. And Maya wants to know, is there a difference between ocean sunfish and mola mola? That's a great question. So ocean sunfish is what we call the common name of the animal. And that's kind of like the common name of a bottlenose dolphin is the bottlenose dolphin. Then there's the scientific names. The scientific name of the ocean sunfish is a mola mola. The scientific name of a bottlenose dolphin is the Tursiops truncatus. So those are just like weird Latin words that we use to kind of cover the, it's a universal language. So while we might call it the bottlenose dolphin, somewhere else around the world calls it whatever their common name is in their language, right? But the scientific name is the same. So same with the mola. We call it the ocean sunfish. In other parts of the world, it's actually called the moonfish. And there is also a moonfish. It's very confusing. But that's where the scientific name comes into play. So common names can differ. Scientific name is the same no matter where you are. The mola mola. There are other molas. There are other sunfish, but it's not the mola mola. So I think there's the mola. It starts with an N or an M or something like that. So it's just a different species. Now, Angela wants to know, can anything eat the mola mola or the ocean sunfish? Yes, they definitely can. In fact, juvenile molas are only about this big or so. I mean, they actually start very small. Molas, ooh, another fun fact. Molas, ocean sunfish, they have, they are the most fecund fish in the ocean. Now, what that means is they're able to produce a lot of babies. A single mola can lay 300 million eggs. 300 million. That is a lot. And they start out as itty bitty little plankton drifting through the ocean, and then they grow. Now, as they grow, they're a really, really great treat for a lot of California sea lions. Oftentimes, if you find a mola dead on the seashore, it usually will have a bite out of it from a sea lion. Sharks can also eat mola molas. Again, it just depends on how big they are, right? So you might not have a little shark eating a mola, but maybe a big shark could take a chunk out of an adult mola. They are also, on the subject of like, do they get eaten? They're a really common fish caught in bycatch. Now, bycatch is kind of an important word in our generation, okay? And bycatch basically means I went fishing, right? And I'm targeting this species, but I caught that species. And bycatch is the oops. So for a lot of like commercial fishermen or commercial fishing practices, you might be fishing for tuna and you catch a mola, or you might, that's just an example. I don't know if mola are a bycatch for tuna fisheries, but the idea is they are a bycatch, meaning they're accidentally caught. Ooh, perfect. I'm actually going to grab this if you don't mind. So James helped us out here. The mola mola is the ocean sunfish. The mola ramsey, that's the scientific name, is known as the southern sunfish. And then the mola tecti is the hoodwinked sunfish. Now, this is really cool because we didn't actually know the hoodwinked sunfish existed. We had like a couple sightings of it. And then they had to actually get a DNA sample to determine it was, in fact, a different species. We also had a question, do molas have teeth? I don't know. I don't think if they do, they're not very big. So molas primarily feed on jellies. So planktonic kind of soft, squishy things in the ocean. Now, Noah wants to know, is the frogfish always orange? Ooh, they are not. However, the two pictures that we have of a frogfish on our computer are, in fact, orange. So that was a great question. We just gave you a very small sample size of what those fish look like. And then Noah also wants to know, what is my favorite fish? Oh, gosh. Okay, so the mola is definitely one of them. Let's see it one more time. One thumb down, one thumb up. Mola, mola, mola. Right? It's like the awkward turtle, but it's a mola, 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 right? So molas are very high up there. I also am very partial to barracudas. Ah! And then James actually knew my favorite fish. This is the blacksmith right here. This is a local fish in our Southern California waters. And I love them because they are related to the California state marine fish. They're in a group of animals called the damselfish. And they're one of few damselfish that we have out here. And then I also love them because when they're babies, so adults are maybe anywhere from like this big to about this big or so. I feel like I'm a fisherman. I caught a fish, it was this big, right? So anywhere from about this big to this big. But the babies, when they're like this big, so there's a whole school of them, right? And this is the adult coloration, but the babies are like bright blue and bright yellow. So the reason I love them is they give us this kind of taste of the tropics, right? Tropical fish tend to be much more colorful because they're living in a colorful coral reef habitat. Local fish tend to be a little bit more, I mean, they're beautiful, but a little bit more blah, right? Greens and grays and browns and yellows and stuff like that. So to get that bright blue and that bright yellow little schools swimming around makes me very happy, especially when I'm snorkeling or diving. So blacksmith are one of my favorite fish. So molas, blacksmith, and then barracudas. I love them. All right. We got two more questions here. What do pufferfish eat, and are they dangerous? What do pufferfish eat? Do we know? Asking the studio. They might eat small fish. They might eat algae. I'm not really sure. We're going to look it up for you. And then the next question was, are they dangerous? So puffers often have a toxin within their body. So as far as us eating them, invertebrates and algae. That's what our puffers eat. So invertebrates are all of those animals without a backbone. Clams and crabs and snails and all sorts of critters. Worms. And then they also feed on algae, which is kind of like the plant of the ocean. Okay, it's not a plant, but it's similar. But yeah, are they dangerous? So they have something in their body that's a toxin. And if we are eating it and it's not prepared just right, it can be very dangerous. In fact, there are only a handful of people who are like certified to prepare puffers, which is kind of cool, to prepare them for food. As far as swimming through the ocean and like having one come up to you, no, they're very skittish fish. I've swam with a couple puffers, not the porcupine puffer or the little balloon fish that we were just looking at there, but for the most part, they're swimming away from you. And then Mrs. Ringer's wants to know, Mrs. Ringer's third grade class wants to know, how big is a frogfish? Great question. So the ones that we have here at the aquarium of the Pacific are only about that big or so, right? I think. And they can vary in size. They can get up to be about that big, I believe. So they vary in size. It just depends on the species. Great questions, everyone. We are running out of time in the studio here, but I loved your participation. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for exploring kind of the oddball fish that we like to highlight in the Pacific Ocean. Again, we went from the different puffers to molas, also known as ocean sunfish, we have the frogfish thrown in there. So a lot of really cool looking animals that might be unique compared to the rest of the fish that we usually think of, right? So the average fish. But that was a great program. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I hope you'll be back to join us at 1 o'clock today. We are going to be doing an Ask a Scientist program. Now, what that means is we do not have an agenda for that program. That is solely based on your questions. And so if you want to know anything about the deep sea, I'm going to be hanging out here. I'm going to do my best to answer it. And of course, I will have Jen and James in here helping me out as well, doing all the fact checking as I go. And so it's going to be a great program. Again, it's going to run from 1 to 1:30. Please send in your questions during that time. And if you have questions afterwards, you can always email us at live@lbaop.org. All right, everyone. We'll see you back at 1 o'clock. Bye.